This is a difficult question to address. When I was asked to talk, it's what's your unique contribution to the world? We all have many contributions, but what makes it unique? I remember one of my high school classmates at a reunion and in the booklet on what they'd been doing indicated that he had been subtly influencing the direction of Western civilization. I don't know that we're having that big of an impact, but certainly I think we all have some kind of a unique impact on the world around us. I think what makes our contribution unique is part of our genetic structure, which of course we can't control, but also how we answer the call. And that's the title of my talk. How do we answer the call? As an example, some of you may know my daughter, Chris Lidke, who's an orchestra director here in the East De Pere system. Christy had a congenital condition called polycystic kidney. And this is a disease, PKD, that runs in my wife's family. My wife has the disease, Chris has the disease, our son had the disease. There's no cure. The only way to deal with this as you age and as your kidneys lose their function is to have a kidney transplant. And so about 4 years ago, it became time for Chris to need a kidney transplant. And a call went out to a number of her friends and colleagues. And 3 of her colleagues here in East De Pere answered the call and said, I will be tested to see if I could be your donor. One of them was a very close match, and she was Chris's donor, and that has changed Chris's life and the life of all of us around her. So that individual answered the call, as well as the others who said they would be tested. They answered the call as well. So what is this call exactly? Well, simply it's a message or a suggestion that you get. It might be overt. It might come from a parent, a teacher, a friend, asking you to do something or to be part of something. It also might be, and I think almost more importantly oftentimes, your inner voice telling you or asking you to do something or potentially to not do something. The call is typically to ask for help, for support, perhaps asking you to serve, to perhaps build your faith. And then, of course, we have to respond to this call. So how do we respond to that call? In many instances, we may simply set it aside. We may ignore that call. In other situations, we may do a kind of a rational evaluation of that call, finding out what should I do this? What information do I need to make a good decision? What are the risks of engaging in this activity or not? And oftentimes, the call might be based, and your response might be based more on your emotions, something that you might respond to very quickly. When I look back on my life, what I see has guided me is how I responded to the calls. And oftentimes these calls were essentially doors that were being opened for me. When I left college, I had no idea that I would end up as a college professor. I had no grand plan for what my life would be. But someone was guiding my life and opening a door here and a door there, giving me a call, and I'm responding to that call. So I felt I was called in a number of ways. And these are ways that perhaps make me somewhat unique, but I think there's others that have responded in similar ways. I was called to support my family, and especially support my family in terms of the PKD disease that is prevalent in our family. And while a lot of people have a sense, if you have a kidney condition and you get a transplant, that essentially you make it through surgery, life is great, and it's a success. And that's part of it. But I'll tell you, the real support is needed after that transplant. The first year is a very challenging year because the patient is on numerous medications that have lots of different side effects, and it takes typically a year to get those meds in balance so life seems a bit normal. I felt I was also called to serve my country. Following my graduation from college, I spent 4 years in the Air Force. And it was at a time when the Vietnam War was still going on. And I had choices to make of going into the Army or maybe volunteering for one of the other services. That's the point where I made one of those rational analyses of my decision and how to respond to the call. And I felt, okay, the Air Force should be a safer venue to be in, and that's the direction I'll take. Little did I know that making that selection really opened the door for me going on to graduate school while I was in the Air Force, and ultimately going on to get a Ph.D. so that I could end up as a college professor. But I never had that in my plan. I was responding to a call, a door opened, I went through that door. I responded to another call, that door opened, I went through that door. So in my profession as a college professor, I've had the opportunity to teach over 5,000 students. I teach in the field of political science, and many of my students are in public service, and I think that's a very important role in our society today, and I'm very proud of those students. I also had an opportunity to create a research institute, and this was a way for me to serve my community. And so the Survey Center ultimately became the Strategic Research Institute at St. Norbert College, and we do a tremendous amount of community research. We do a project called the Life Project that guides many nonprofit organizations in delivering services and making our community a better place to live. The school that we're all sitting in, we had a role in the referendum that led up to the building of this school to give the school district a sense of what was on the minds of citizens, what was important to them in terms of enhancing the building of our school district. And I was called to build my faith. A few years back, I was called to serve on the board of directors of the Lutheran School of Theology in Chicago, which is one of the seminaries of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, which is my church. I had no idea that I was going to receive that kind of a call. And again, it was a decision that was kind of a rational one, and I decided, well, I'm in higher education. That's a higher education institution. I can perhaps provide some assistance and some guidance in that area. But it also had a tremendous impact on building my faith and the role that God has played in my life. So we all receive calls every day. And a lot of times those calls are that inner voice asking you, telling you to do something. In some instances, the response to the call is in the negative. Don't do anything. Don't take this particular step. Some of the important people in our society, in our history, Abraham Lincoln, for example, maybe didn't have genetic structure that made him unique, other than he was kind of unique-looking individual. But what was it that made him unique? He answered the call to lead us through the Civil War. Rosa Parks, the African-American woman who in the Civil Rights Movement decided that she wouldn't move to the back of the bus. It wasn't her genetics that made her unique. It was she answered the call. And so I ask of all of you to pay attention to the calls in your life, because it's those calls that I think will make you unique. The question is, how will you answer the call? Thank you.